We're very passionate about composting here at Nunnington Hall. We try and recycle and reuse as much as possible. We're very keen to have closed loop systems, meaning that we try not to remove any waste from the garden. We try and utilise as much as possible to make our own composts, our own mulch, our own compost mixers for potting, and our own liquid feeds out of the comfrey and nettles that grow on site, as well as the leaf mould that we collect in the car park. So here we have our composting system. We know it as the Nunnington Hall 4-bay composting system. However, there's about 5 or 6 bays nowadays, but basically all the magic happens in about 4 bays. All the waste from the garden, all the grass clippings, all the herbaceous cuttings, all go into bay 1, always goes into bay 1. And this helps to stop it being too confusing for all the different staff and volunteers to know where the rubbish is going on that particular day, or the waste. So everything goes into bay 1. When bay 1 is filled after about 4 or 6 weeks, it has to be turned into bay 2. Prior to that, bay 2 has to be turned into bay 3, but prior to that, bay 3 into bay 4, so that we've got a space next to it. So this is where the fresh waste is going in. This is where a lot of heat develops. Then it gets turned after 6 weeks into bay 2, and you can see it's already starting to compost. It's starting to break down a little bit. And then another 6 weeks later, we turn it into bay 3. This is where, as the weather warms up, we're going to see a huge amount of worm activity. That'll be full of little red worms working their way through, breaking that down into compost. You can see quite a few down there already starting to work away. And that'll get more as the weather warms up. And then finally, we'll turn it into bay 5, bay 4 and then bay 5, which will be the holding bay to store it until next spring when we mulch the garden. We have just mulched the garden through February, so these bays are empty at the moment, but as we turn it throughout the year, these will build up so that next spring, end of winter next year, we'll have 2 bays full of mulch ready to go back onto the garden again. We also make our own compost mixers, so we mix this with our own leaf mould and grit and sand to create a potting mix, so we're not having to buy in a lot of expensive peat-free potting mixers as we're a peat-free organisation, but it's much better and much cheaper for us if we can produce as much compost for our own needs as possible. We also try and recycle as much of our catering waste as possible from the tea rooms. If we put everything, things like the salad leaves and some of the vegetable peelings, if we put them straight into the compost bays, there is a chance that things like mice and rats may appear to come and eat them. So what we do, we use a compost tumbler. We have this ride-on food waste compost tumbler. All the food waste, the coffee grounds, the salad, the vegetable peelings and the tea bags, which now don't contain any plastic, they go into the top. The handle is turned, and using big paddles inside, it will feed it through where it will eventually fall out the back as a usable compost. We don't actually use that straight. We consider this to be a pre-composter. So after this has come all the way through the tumbler, we will then tip it into bay 1. It'll be full of microorganisms, bacteria and worms. We'll tip that into bay 1, and that'll help to accelerate the composting in bay 1. We're really proud of our leaf mould. It takes actually about 3 years for us to produce leaf mould. We collect most of it in the car park and we store it in big chicken wire cages at the end of the car park out of the way of the public. Then after about 2 years it gets moved up here so we can use it. So here we can see it's just getting to that point now where it's becoming lovely and friable. As I said earlier, we can use that in our compost mixers. And we can also use it as a mulch on the garden. And because our vegetable production here is a no-dig vegetable production, we don't dig the soil, we just mulch it every year. This is perfect for that. Although leaf mould doesn't have any nutrient content at all, as the invertebrates break that down, they will in turn be providing that NP and K to the garden as their process of breaking down that leaf mould and then that leaching through the soil below. So when we're doing our yearly mulch across our vegetable beds or earthing up our potatoes, we will use some of our compost, but we'll be using a lot of this leaf mould at the same time. And as I said, it will also get used in our potting mixers.